Story that came from Yahoo Finance that I had to throw in here. Nearly 25% of Americans are now functionally unemployed. Here's what that harsh reality really means. So first of all, the government itself always lies about the employment numbers, right? So as far as they're saying, the unemployment rate is below 5%, which is a low that was initially hit by Bill Clinton. And the thing about it is Bill Clinton's unemployment was completely different than today's unemployment, because the difference is the cost of living is much, much higher now. Inflation is obviously much, much higher now. The national debt is much, much higher now. Things were better, actually, during the Bill Clinton era, if you really think about it or compare cost of living and how difficult it was for people to actually survive. It says a low unemployment rate typically signals that the economy is generally healthy. The unemployment rate in the U.S. remained near a 50-year low in April 2025 at 4.2%. Plus, American employers added 177,000 jobs in April despite the uncertainty of Trump's tariffs and trade wars. This sounds good, right? Not so fast. The true rate of unemployment in April, according to the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity, LICEP, was 24.3%, up 0.03% from the previous month. LICEP's true rate of unemployment, true, TRU, includes the unemployed as well as workers who are employed but still struggling. We have a word for that. We call them underemployed in sociology. We are facing a job market where nearly 1 in 4 workers are functionally unemployed, and current trends show little sign of improvement. The harsh reality is that far too many Americans are still struggling to make ends meet. Well, here's a problem, though. You're never going to make ends meet simply because they're ends. Ends don't meet. I'll say it again. You can't make ends meet because they're ends. Ends don't meet. Next. Where was I? Why is there a 20-point difference between the LICEP and the Bureau of Labor Statistics? Well, that's easy. It's because the BLS is lying. Anyway, the BLS collects a massive amount of data on unemployment, but some of that data is excluded from the official unemployment rate. For example, BLS found that 5.7 million people who aren't employed do, in fact, want a job. Oh, I'm sure you want a job. I want a job, too. I want to be Jeff Bezos, but it ain't going to happen. So anyway, they were not actively looking for work during the 4 weeks preceding the survey or were unable to take a job, according to BLS. You see, first of all, this whole thing is a data. It's all about data and it's all about lying about numbers. They say numbers do not lie, but people can lie about numbers. So if you leave things out, if you underreport, if you misreport, you may not lie about the numbers, but you can definitely trick people into believing that something that you want them to think is true isn't really true. Simple fact is, I believe that we're currently in a state of stagflation. The government is never going to agree to that. They'll never, ever confess to that. But the recession, followed by inflation, followed by underemployment, I would say that that's due to stagflation. And one of the key points of stagflation, keep in mind they don't teach this shit in high school. One of the key points of stagflation is that it's usually exacerbated by poor government policy. Now, if you take a look at Trump's tariffs, I can't think of poorer government policy than that. Right now, these people out there in California and the National Guard's been called out on them. They're trying to stop illegal immigrants from being deported. Supposedly, ICE has gone to graduations, and they're capturing people at graduations and deporting them and locking them up and everything. So while a lot of these people are quick to say, yeah, this is exactly what I voted for, they're not so quick to say this is what they voted for when they understand what it actually means, the consequences of the tariffs and the consequences of having a volatile market in general. That's the part where they deviate a little bit. But the problem is you have a lot of these people who are angry, a lot of these people who are racists, and a lot of these people who generally are just hateful. So a lot of them, they'll cut off their nose to spite their face. So this is only going to get more and more of a desperate situation. I personally believe the Democrats are going to retake the House and the Senate in the midterm elections. I could be proven wrong, but I personally believe that's going to happen simply because of the national outrage. But if that does happen, be prepared for Trump to be impeached a third time. He's going to go down in history as the first president to be impeached 3 times. But depending upon where the Democrats are, he might even get removed. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the simple fact is this economy is not what it's cracked up to be. Underemployment is high. Working class is struggling. They can't afford rent. They can't afford houses. We have a situation where the government has set us up to a point where you can't basically easily buy anything because the interest rates are so ridiculously high, and they have to be because otherwise the national debt, they can't lower the interest rates because then they wouldn't be able to control inflation, but they can't raise they can't raise the interest rates either, because if that happens, then the national debt will become unpayable. So you're basically going to be sitting at $37 trillion in national debt within a month. So it is what it is. But your feelings about that, I don't know. But I'm just reporting it the way I see it. Today is June 8th, 2025. It is Sunday evening. And the story that was published just a little while ago at 6:19 p.m. Dow futures rise as stocks eye record highs ahead of U.S.-China talks and inflation reports. So for anybody who doesn't follow credible news sources, the simple fact is we're not out of the woods yet when it comes to this tariff trade war that Trump himself has started. So the reality is there's so much volatility that's been forced into the stock market that you really don't know exactly where you should be parking your money, which is why I like making these videos, because I talk about where I'm parking my money. And I get very good returns because I kind of go against the grain and I put my money into things where most people aren't even really thinking about it. So as the story says, it says stock futures ticked up on Sunday night at the S&P 500's recent rally. And this is brought within 2.4% of its all-time high reached in February. So they're basically talking about when we were at Dow 45,000. Before President Donald Trump's trade war ravaged markets. That comes ahead of a big week, which will see another round of U.S.-China trade talks and key inflation reports. U.S. stock futures pointed up on Sunday night ahead of a big week that will be highlighted by U.S.-China trade talks and fresh inflation data. A strong job report on Friday added more fuel to a rally that has lifted the S&P 500 to within 2.4% of its all-time high reached in February. And once again, before Donald Trump's trade war sank the market. See, they're not going to let you forget the fact that everything was going just fine until this fucking guy sank the market. I think back to even Tesla's stock. Now, we all know that at this point, Elon Musk and Trump are basically at war with each other, or at least that's what they're doing for the camera. And Tesla was at $488. I really thought that they were going to hit $500 a share, and sure enough, Trump announcing this trade war, along with people, in general starting to boycott Elon Musk and boycott Tesla, caused the stock to fall back. And right now the stock is, let me just look. Right now the stock is at $295.14. Right before the Trump-Elon fallout, the stock was at like $360 a share. So in just a handful of days, just 3 or 4 days, the stock can go up $100 and it can drop $100. The volatility of Tesla is so high that my Charles Schwab portfolios rate Tesla a solid F. Tesla, Rivian, and Lucid are all rated a solid F. Now, I believe that Rivian absolutely has a future, and I believe Lucid has a future. The only thing about it is it's going to require them to continue to get outside support. Lucid's getting theirs from the Saudis. Rivian is they're trying to bring forth cheaper and less expensive SUVs to replace the R1S and the R1T. So it's going to be a while before that stock starts to go up. So I don't really recommend buying those stocks because, for one thing, they don't pay a dividend. They're not really profitable. And right now they're holding on by a thread because they don't even know what's going to happen in the future, especially when you're dealing with somebody like Trump and he's, always out to hurt somebody. So in this case, he might try to hurt Elon by taking away subsidies for electric vehicles. Another thing that they mentioned here, they mentioned something about oil and gold. Yes, they said gold prices dipped 0.25% to $338 per ounce. U.S. oil prices have climbed. Notice that. U.S. oil prices have climbed 0.28% to $64.76 per barrel. Brent crude gained 0.21% to 66.61. Now, for anybody who's been following me for any length of time, you know that very specifically on my channel, I focused on dividend-paying stocks. I focused on buying oil, buying gas companies, buying oil mining companies, energy companies in general. Like even right now, I'm looking at my portfolio. I'm thinking about right here, Sunoco and Exxon, Texaco, Chevron. And the thing about it is oil prices are prone to global politics. When you go to war, oil prices tend to trick up. When there's peace, oil prices tend to go down. When we have a situation like we have with the pandemic, where you have countries literally closing their borders, oil prices drop to sub-negative. I don't foresee that happening again. I think after they got their taste of what COVID had to offer, I don't think anybody wants to deal with that shit again. So I don't think that's ever going to happen again. But if you have global warfare, yeah, you have an issue where oil prices are going to go rise up. So because of the fact that these energy companies continue to pay solid dividends, especially like Sunoco, Chevron, Occidental, et cetera, owning oil, energy, gas companies, natural gas, liquid petroleum, they're always a good option. I had expanded that thought to encompass credit cards. No matter what Trump does, whether he forces these tariffs or whether he goes back to normal, the simple fact is, and I've been seeing more and more information really talking about what's happening with the job market and AI threatening white-collar jobs that right now they pay decently, but they're pretty superfluous. The simple fact is, if you're buying into credit card stock, you don't have to worry about anything. When you bet on credit card stock, you're basically acknowledging the fact that America's middle class is shrinking. The rich are growing more powerful, and the poor are growing as well. So the middle class is shrinking, the poor is growing. These people continue their spending habits, but they're doing it on credit cards. That was my entire idea behind investing in credit card stock. Because the simple fact is, these people, these women specifically, they go shopping for shit that they absolutely don't need and can't afford. But they out there, they got their Visa, they got their MasterCard, they got their American Express, they got the Discover, but they're going to buy. They're on Amazon, they are on Home Shopping Network, they're on Temu. Bottom line is they're buying, and they don't tend to repay their balances every single night. Like, this is something I've always taught about, maintaining a healthy credit score. You got to repay these balances immediately. You cannot run revolving balances. But these people, they don't think like that. They run revolving balances. And because of that, their credit is shit. I have an 850 credit score, and I'm very proud of it. But most of these people, they're lucky if they see anything above 750. And that affects them for everything. That affects them when they try to buy a car. That affects them when they try to buy a house. But right now, the housing market is paralyzed, so they can't buy any houses. So that means that they have, if they're lucky, they have some money being saved up. But the problem is they just go out and spend that on a more expensive, flashier car. So ultimately, right now, the market, all I'm recommending is that if you're building a portfolio, you get those dividend paying oil stocks, gas stocks, oil mining, credit card stocks, and even bank stocks. Keep in mind, the large banks like JP Morgan Chase, Capital One, Citizens Financial Group, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. These people have mortgages. Wells Fargo, Chase, these people have mortgages. These people have credit cards. They have to pay somebody. These banks ain't going nowhere. That's the reason why all of the banks are able to pay you a dividend simply because they're profitable industries. So I still recommend credit cards. I still recommend banks. There's other things out there to buy, but you have to remember when we talk about the Dow Jones, and I talk about that as my indicator as to how the economy, or at least Wall Street, is economy, how's it going? One thing you got to remember is that the top like 12 companies are $1 trillion companies. They basically contain half of the wealth for the entire stock market. So you're talking about Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Google, Amazon. I guess I'll include Tesla, Meta, as in Facebook. And then there's a couple of others. So I think I just named the Magnificent Seven for the most part. But the top 12 companies are basically all $1 trillion companies. So they actually contain 50% of the wealth. So when you see Tesla fall for whatever reason, or you see Meta go up or go down, that has a major effect on the overall Dow Jones because they allowed themselves to get suckered into letting Elon Musk onto that Dow. So now, as it's part of the Magnificent Seven, unless they rewrite the rules, simple fact is, it's like, if anything goes wrong with that stock, if he has a fight with Trump, if people boycott him, you see major, major swings in the Dow Jones. Now, my money, from what I can see, has been safest in Nvidia, Berkshire B shares, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. Those are like my top performers. But then after that, I got Tesla, Apple, Citigroup, Sunoco, Citizens Financial. And then after that, I have Micron. And then you get down to like Ford Motors and everything. Ford Motors. And then right after that is Walmart, MasterCard, GM, and so forth and so on. Visa, American Express. So companies like Goldman Sachs, it's like they pay a nice dividend, but the stock is a little expensive, so you're better off buying into like MasterCard and Visa or Discover Card because they're cheaper, they're easier to afford. So that's what I've basically been doing. Every single month, I've been making these silly videos. YouTube does not help me at all. I'd like to think that, I could be one of those YouTube influencers who YouTube forces their videos on kids. And I've been watching these kids. These kids will turn on these disgusting, stupid, child-targeted videos that YouTube basically recommends. And they'll watch that shit all day long. And then they won't. But first of all, these kids all have ADHD. So for the most part, the autoplay button does the job for them. And these channels, they get millions of views and millions of subscribers. To some extent, I don't even think most of these kids are actually subscribing to these channels. I think they're being auto-subscribed to these channels. And YouTube helps certain channels, but a lot of other channels, you've probably noticed a lot of these other channels have fallen off, disappeared. They don't send you notifications anymore. So my bottom line was this. With my YouTube money, every dime that I've been getting, I take that and I've put it into my stock portfolio. It used to be when we were getting really big payments on YouTube. I mean, really big payments. There was some months I was making like $4,000 and $5,000. And that's no joke. Like, especially with the Passport Bro content. And especially when I used to do lives. I don't bother doing it anymore because at this point it's a waste of time. But there were some months where I'd get massive amounts of money. I used that mostly to help pay back my student loans. Paid back my student loans early. I was also writing for opinionshopping.com. I was doing blogging. and I was making money every single month, I used that to pay back my student loans. I paid back my student loans 10 years early. And at this point now, the YouTube money that comes in, I roll that right into the stock market. Instead of spending it, I roll it right into the stock market. So when I get my next YouTube check, yeah, it'll probably be spent on credit card stocks, because all that money does is just sit there and it just keeps on getting bigger. And that's what you have to think about it. You have to think, where can you put your money where even a moron with stupid policies like Trump, where can I put my money where even he can't fuck it up? And that's not to say that the Democrats are any better. They're horrible, too. The Republicans are bad. The Democrats are bad. I think this big, beautiful bill is going to fail because everybody recognizes that all it does is add to the deficit and the national debt. So even Elon Musk is out there rallying against. I think it's hilarious watching these guys fight, but it's no good for the country. But I think most people really don't care about that in the long run. They just basically care about themselves at this point. And maybe selfishness is part of the mix, which I'm pretty sure it is. But the simple fact is, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Where are you going to park your money where it's safe? I got about 10 years left till I retire. They talking about AI attacking these people's jobs and shit. All I got to do is survive just long enough to hit retirement age. That's all I got to do. All I got to do is, and then you're going to see me, if YouTube still exists, or if I still have a YouTube, you're going to see me on a beach. It's going to be in Thailand, Philippines, someplace over there. Nice, quiet, safe country where it's like very cheap living. Maybe Thailand, maybe either Philippines, Thailand, Bali, who knows? I might do like Russell Simmons and go over there. And the simple fact is, I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to have some young chick rubbing me with the buko juice, got the coconut oil rubbed down. I'm going to be just doing nothing but massages all day. And I feel bad for the rest of y'all. Y'all going to be stuck right here in America on the plantation. And y'all going to be forced to work these meaningless jobs and basically that'll just be it for you. But at this point, I have no aspirations. I have like no desire to do anything else. I just want to retire. And I just want to be getting the slap down shiatsu from some chick like a third my age. And we're going to be on the beach. And I'm going to be like, yeah, yo, get the coconut oil. And she's going to be like, slap. And it's just, that's all I'm going to do. I have no aspirations at this point. And I'm going to be just chilling. I'm going to have like, the hat, that's the corn hat where it's like you're on, you're just chilling with the beach. And that's it. And I'll be getting these dividend paying stocks, paying for most of it. And that I'll have my retirement, my pension, dividend paying stocks in the portfolio just sitting there. And then I'll be so old I'll get like Social Security. If Social Security exists. But I'm not worried about Social Security, because the second that Trump starts talking about Social Security, AR-15 ammo sales go up. So I'm not really worried about them getting rid of Social Security, because as you know, with these Republican lawmakers, everybody pretty much knows exactly where they live. So for the most part, I'm not worried about them doing anything to Social Security, because I know those ammo sales go through the roof. And Jim Bob and the Bundy Ranch and all them, they get armed. And they're not playing these games. They'll turn January 6th into January 7th. You know what I'm saying? I'll say it without saying it, but you know what I'm saying. So I ain't worried about it. But I'm going to be over there in the Philippines. I'll be in Thailand. And I'll be like, hey, Mei Lee, I need more coconut oil. Oh, yes, husband. Absolutely, more coconut oil. Slap, 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 slap. That's what I'm talking about. But you don't understand what I'm talking about, because a lot of you, you may not even be able to retire. You're going to be here on the plantation because you didn't invest your money right. So I don't know what to tell you, but to each his own. You do what you want to do. You can listen to, these fake ass YouTube influences that they're forcing on you. I make these fucking stupid videos. I get less than 1,000 views and whatnot now, thanks to their bullshit algorithm. And it'll just be what it be. But one thing about it is, I'm going to be on that beach one way or another. One way, I'm going to be spending that Social Security on Mei Lee. And Mei Lee's got that coconut oil. Mei Lee, I need some more buko juice. Mei Lee going to be pouring the buko juice for me. And that's all. I don't aspire to do anything anymore. I think that's the worst thing about this entire thing. I was born just late enough to avoid slavery, but too early for Star Trek. And I'm stuck here on this planet with you people. And I would like to be out there exploring new worlds and new civilizations and boldly going where no man has gone before, but I can't. I'm stuck here. So if that's all they got for me, and that's it, and that's all they got for me, then I'm going to be on a beach just doing nothing. And I'm sorry, but that's what it is. I'll be on my beach with the Buko juice, with Maylee giving me pat downs, and I got my Nintendo Switch too, and we're just playing video games. And I have no aspirations. I'm sorry. I used to have aspirations, but this country just killed all of that. I don't know how they did it, but they just did. So at this point, all I want to do is just retire and just wash my hands of it. And that's it. And I'm sorry. That's exactly how I feel about it. That's not even a joke. A few days ago, you may remember that I walked into the Cadillac dealership where I buy my cars. And I love this dealership in particular. They're Paul Conti out in Freeport, Long Island, right? Now, there are other dealerships that I have bought from. Specifically, there was North Bay on Northern Boulevard, and I also went to Sarant Cadillac. But basically, I've kind of consolidated my entire family and any of my friends who wanted to buy a Cadillac to this dealership particularly because I like their service and I like their, they have like a small family feeling. And my mom got her last 3 cars from them. And what else? I took one of my friends, coworker there to buy her car from there. I bought my Cadillacs from there. I got my Lyric from there, obviously. And just recently, the reason why I was there was because I was looking at used cars. And that basically was giving me an idea about what the used car market looks like. Because originally what it is I have an auntie, and she has a Mercedes GLE 350. And the lease was ending on it. Because pretty much my aunts and uncles, they lease their cars. One of my aunts has the Mercedes EQS, and she also has a Mercedes S-Class. Then I have another uncle, and he has a Mercedes, what is that thing? A GLE 450, and he also has a Mercedes S-Class. And the thing about it is when those leases end, it's like sometimes they don't want to rebuy the same car. Sometimes they want something else. So the Mercedes GLE lease was ending. So we went out looking, and we went out, I went out and I did the footwork. I went out looking, and, they had, of course, all of this new electric cars. They had a slew of electric cars, the Optic, the Lyric, the Vistic, and then they had the Escalade IQ. And she was more interested in getting an XT5 because the reality is, and this is something that I realized, because people keep questioning me about this, and I keep trying to address it and get some finality in what my beliefs are. The simple fact is, electric vehicles are the future, but not for the reasons you think. It's not just because we're trying to be green and clean and all that bullshit. No. And I've said this a couple of times. The simple fact is, this is about global politics. China is way ahead of America when it comes to electric vehicles. I would say the best electric vehicles we have are probably the Tesla Plaid, the, what is that thing called? The Taycan Porsche, and then there's what Cadillac's making. And GM, amazingly, they have turned out some very good electric vehicles. In fact, I would say that Cadillac has found its niche making electric vehicles. But here's the problem. We're making these cars to sell just basically to Americans. Now, China has Cadillac, and some of the countries over there in Europe may have Cadillacs, and they also have access to some of the GM cars. Some of those cars are actually built in China. They're not built here and shipped over to Europe or China. They're actually built over there in China. But China is way ahead of our cars. They're way ahead of Tesla, and they're way ahead of Cadillac, and they're way ahead of GM, and they're way ahead. And some people don't care about that. Oh, yeah, but I just want a V8 engine. I want to be able to hear my car. I need my car to have a soul. I need to hear my... First of all, most of y'all, when y'all buying these cars, y'all can't afford the top-end V8 engines. Not everybody can afford no Hellcat. Not everybody can afford $1,000 brake repairs per rotor, where you got a $2,000 brake job or a $3,000 brake job. Nope, not too many people can afford that. Not too many people can afford every 5,000 miles they got to buy new tires because the car is literally grinding the tires to dust. Most of you, your idea of getting one of these cars with a gas engine is like you're getting a fart can on a Honda Civic or a Toyota or a Camry or a Honda Accord, and it just sounds terrible. For that, you're better off getting an electric vehicle. You get more power, more torque, and more efficiency. But the problem is that most people, they don't have a house. They don't have a place to charge these cars. So what ends up happening is you have a large demographic, and this is really coming down to the separation of middle class and working poor. Working poor, they may be able to afford some of these boring bullshit ass cars like, Toyota Camrys, Honda Accords, and whatever. The little, ICE appliances. They may be able to afford that stuff. But the reality is, if you want to buy an electric vehicle, unless you're buying a Tesla, you're pretty much stuck having to have a house to charge your car. Now, I have 2 houses. I have charging equipment. I've made videos about the charging equipment numerous times. And I have the ability to do that. I don't leave the state much unless I'm going outside the country. So the thing about it is I don't do road trips. If I had to do a road trip, best believe I would be in a minivan, especially if I had to do a road trip with my family members. A minivan offers uncompromising space. A minivan offers a lot more practicality. Gas prices are lower. You're basically putting regular unleaded in there. It has a nice flat, grounded feeling. And for the most part, yes, I would rather have a minivan. But there's a lot of people, because of their egos, I won't look good in the minivan. It's not masculine enough. I can't drive that. So, I listen to these people and I'm like, okay, well, you can do whatever you want. But the lack of practicality is what's going to get you in the end. Because most of these people, they can't even afford to buy this stuff anymore. This stuff is too expensive. So, again, if I had to do road trips a lot, I would have a minivan. If I had a big family, 2 or 3 kids, I have one cousin right now. He's got like 3 kids, and they're looking into, they're probably going to end up in a Kia Carnival too. I can't recommend the Chrysler Pacifica anymore because Stellantis service is absolute shit. So I'm very disappointed with them. But the simple fact is, when it comes to cars, oh yeah, there's lots of options and stuff to buy, but the prices are high. And when it comes to the new cars, I keep saying this, I'm bored with the new cars. The only things that are exciting are things I absolutely can't afford. The Lamborghini Revuelto, the Bugatti Tourbillon. I ain't got $5 million to buy no fucking car. But those are the only things that I even consider remotely exciting. As far as the rest of this stuff on the market, yeah, this is some of it's fun, comfortable, it'll get you by, but everything is just boring. And I was looking, I saw online and they were talking about, cars to wait for in 2026. And all of this stuff was either boring or, again, it was ridiculously expensive where you'd never be able to afford it unless you were like rich, super, super rich. I ain't got $5 million to buy no damn car, nor do I have thousands upon thousands of dollars to pay on insurance, But we do have a lot of options. Like I'm looking at this Escalade IQ, and I like, how I like the features. It's got like the rear televisions, it's got the front monitors and everything. I like the way they built that. I like the way they built the Vistic. I like the way, there's a lot of options. There's the Volvo EX90, the electric EX90. I like that. There's a lot of options. I mean, they have the Kias and the Hyundais. They got these brand new Kias and Hyundais electric cars. They're nice. Then they have, of course they have gas cars because a whole lot of people, if you don't have a house, you're not ready to buy an electric car unless you're buying a Tesla. But now in the news, you hear about them forcing Tesla. They're saying they're trying to take Tesla out of New Jersey. And Tesla thinks that they have these grand plans about having cyber taxis. That shit is never going to work. Nobody's going to have electric cars driving around by themselves and nobody is driving the car. It's not going to happen. The insurance companies are not going for it. Here in New York City, we've got roads that are in such disrepair that these cars would destroy themselves if they didn't understand how to navigate the potholes and the horrible roads. Or they would kill somebody if they didn't understand how to navigate that. The insurance companies ain't going for it. That's part of the reason why Tesla's a meme stock. It's like they dream really big, but they underdeliver all the time. The Tesla Cybertruck took forever to come out, and it's a disaster. It's a flop. And then you got the Tesla Roadster, which these people spent like damn near, $250,000 for, and they haven't gotten one yet because they haven't even built the damn thing yet. So Tesla, it bothers me that, I was bullish on the stock because I had no idea what was going to go down with this Musk, South Afrikaners, and Trump. I had no idea what was going to go down with these people. I'm sure, Kathy Wood feels the same way because that's the last person you should be following for stock advice. Kathy Woods was betting all this money on these meme stocks and Bitcoin and all this, and then pulls out before anything gets going because she notices that her ARK Innovation, her fund is losing so much money. Like, when they break down how much money this woman has lost, I'm like, why are they celebrating her? But once again, these fake ass internet, I don't know who's running this and who's hyping these people, but they run the fakest people. They run the fakest gurus that they can run. And it's really, to tell you the truth, it's really, really frustrating, especially when I know that I've made way better picks and I've made way better solutions than these people have. People like Jim Cramer, I don't understand how people like that still have a job. People like Kathy Wood, I would have fired her years ago. Her, Jim Cramer, I would have fired them years ago. I don't understand how these people still have jobs. I really don't. It's like, if you lose that much money, there has to be a penalty. But that's just not how it goes. It's all these fake-ass YouTube gurus, the ones who are trying to push you into these fake-ass altcoins. Where are they now? They're gone. But this move to these electric cars and stuff, this is about global politics. China, mark my words, is already in South America with BYD. China is going to go into these countries, African countries, South American countries. They're going to go into these countries. They're going to make friends with all of our newfound enemies. They're going to make friends with these people. They're going to build their toilets. They're going to build their electric infrastructure. And China is going to have dominion and control over most of that infrastructure. They're going to have access to their data, their metadata. They're going to have full access to that. Now, America under Trump is really, really playing stupidly. We're not playing real chess here. China is way ahead of us already. America and Europe have not benefited the African country one goddamn bit. Now, if you want to talk about going to Africa or going to South America to steal, yes, Europe and America have stolen a lot. If the pyramids weren't so heavy, they'd probably be in Europe or they'd be in America right now. But they couldn't move them. Otherwise, they would have stole them shits and then lied about it in the history books. So the reality is, I appreciate what China's doing because I understand, China's going to get those raw materials. But in return, China's coming in and say, we'll build up some plumbing and everything because you guys, where do you flush your toilets? You ain't got no flush toilets? We're going to build that for you. So we'll build your flush toilets while we're taking the coal tar out of your backyard. We'll build a Wi-Fi network for you while we're taking all of your what else they got? While we're taking all of your mica, your Muscovite mica. While we're taking that Muscovite mica so that we can make silicon chips that don't overheat. We'll build you some wiring and stuff. And we'll, it's funny because Europe and America are so racist that for all of these years, all they've done is make fun of Africa. Like, they show pictures of the dark continent of Africa. I'm like, well, if it's so dark there, why aren't you helping them build electric infrastructure? But they don't. Now, China comes in there and China says, why is it so dark here? Let's build some wiring. Let's put up some infrastructure. And they do it. So I ain't got nothing against China because I see what they're doing. I understand. Yeah, they're going to strip mine these entire places. But for the most part, the locals weren't really using it. And they were just waiting for Europe and America to steal it from them. So China might as well come in and help them out. And in the meantime, you think there's a lot of Chinese women marrying into Africa. And, African men are getting these Christmas cakes. I don't see a problem with that at all. As far as my weekend went, we found pretty much the exact car we were looking at. We basically settled on a black on black interior. Black paint outside, black interior, black paint outside, Cadillac XT5. My aunt really likes the way the XT5 drives. I've driven the XT5 a couple of times. I like the way it drives too. To me, it drives kind of like a minivan does, except you sit higher off the ground than you would in a minivan. But she likes the way it drives, and she likes the spaciousness of it. I also showed her the XT4, and the XT4 it would have fit her needs, but I think a lot of these grown people, they prefer the XT5 because the XT5 just offers a larger car. It offers like a larger feeling and everything. So I did kind of feel that the price is a little bit high. It's a new car, $59,000. So the lease, you put down a significant amount of money, you get that lease down below $500 and whatnot. I kind of felt that the price, in my opinion, the price should be about $50,000 loaded, because the problem is when you have the Lyric sitting right next to it on the showroom floor, and yes, the Lyric is way more expensive, but I really think that the XT5, because of the number of features that it's lacking compared to the new vehicles, I really think that the price should have been lower. However, considering what the market really looks like right now, it's like there's really not a lot of options unless you go to a different brand. But we're comfortable with this brand. We like the brand a lot, and we've owned multiple cars from the brand. So the only thing that was like a change for her was the dealership that we're going to use. So, I'm satisfied. I'm very happy with the model. My mom, of course, has this model, and she's got about, 45,000 miles, and it's treated her very well. She may take it in once or twice a year for service. She is in the process probably of looking for extension of the warranty or whatever for the car to, at least maybe cover it until about 100,000 miles. Good car. Great for road trips. They did add the digital LCD mirror like my Lyric has, which was a good idea. They have this car, this trim has heated and ventilated front seats. It has heated back seats. So it's actually pretty much in that respect the equivalent of my car, except it doesn't have massage seats. And I was actually very disappointed that what Cadillac didn't do was that they didn't take what they did with the XT4 and expand it to the XT5 and the XT6. They are canceling the XT6. The XT6 is a 3-row, and a lot of limo taxi guys love those here because it's a gas car that uses regular unleaded, and it's spacious. They should have taken the XT6 and the XT5, given them the option for Cadillac Super Cruise, and I think that would have made them much, much nicer, especially if they'd given it the Chinese treatment and took the new Chinese XT5 and the new Chinese CT6 and brought those to America. And it really bothers me because I'm like, wait a minute, why is China getting everything like awesome and we're not? It's like, are you trying to tell me that the Chinese are doing better than we're doing, or what? Like, what are you trying to say? It's like certain things they should be bringing here. If I was in that company, I can't imagine how many people I'd have to fire who would try to bean count me and be like, oh, well, we can't have that in the car. I'm like, you're fired. Yeah, and oh, well, yeah, we could have that in the car. Yeah, you goddamn right we could have it, because otherwise you're fired. Because I feel Cadillac, they could take on Mercedes with the product that they have. I really think cars like my Lyric, cars like the Escalade IQ, cars like the Vistic and the Optic, they could really take on Mercedes. They could easily take on BMW, but I really think they could take on Mercedes. But they're not even really trying. It's like The rear television should be available in every single car as an option. The heated/ventilated/massage seats, that could be in every single car as an option. It's like they're not even trying. And it's sad because the CT6 had all of that stuff. And it's like now we're going backwards. It's like, yeah, let's take those features out. Even though we've got these retirees who could easily pay that money and buy all this stuff, let's just take that stuff out and not even give them the option. I'm like, what are y'all doing? You know? And GM stock is below $50 right now. GM does pay a dividend, but it's hard to bet on a stock that's not even willing to bet on themselves. So the recent story, and I guess that you could consider this part of my Market Watch segment, but it's basic. It's on its own, you know, because I didn't put it in with the last video I think that I posted. Stellantis' new CEO must decide which of the 14 brands stay or go. It says Carlos Tavares departed due to disagreements over strategy, but what is the right strategy for the struggling Stellantis group? Stellantis is searching for a new CEO after the departure of Carlos Tavares last December. The struggling group has 14 brands, and not all of them will necessarily survive in the new era. Stellantis profits dropped by 48% in H1 2024. It reveals full 2024 data later this week. So this story was published February 24th. They have since found a new CEO. And if you look 13 hours ago, Yahoo Finance, they have this new CEO. And it says, is a new CEO reason enough to buy a Stellantis turnaround? So now they found a new CEO. Stellantis has faced adversity and its stock is down 56% over the past year. Newly appointed CEO Antonio Filosa has to mend relationships with dealers and suppliers. Stellantis is often pegged as the most vulnerable to tariffs of the Detroit Big Three. Shares of Stellantis have been consistent. Unfortunately, over the past year, the shares have consistently declined, shedding roughly 56% of their value. The automaker's former CEO, Carlos Tavares, was clashing with the board of directors, and dealers were frustrated and struggling to move inventory. The United Auto Workers Union carried out a public campaign to have Tavares fired, and he soon resigned. With freshly anointed CEO Antonio Filosa taking over, it is time for investors to jump in and scoop up shares on the cheap. Is it time for you to do that? Repairs required. By the time former CEO Tavares resigned, Stellantis' relationship with its dealer suppliers and unionized employees had been severely strained, something Filosa will have to mend. Let's take a closer look at the challenge with dealers. So it goes on and on and on and on and talks about this. It says they also had legal battles regarding pricing, among other issues, marking another entity Filosa will have to mend relationships with. And then they show the Grand Cherokee 4xe plug-in hybrid. Time to cut fat. Another gift left for Filosa to navigate will be choosing brands to pour capital into now. When Stellantis formed in 2021, Tavares announced that each brand would have a 10-year window to execute business plans, but later walked that back by saying performance could be reviewed as early as 2026. You have to rip the Band-Aid off and pick and choose which of your brands are going to survive. Tavares giving them 10 years basically pushed the decision down the road to his successor because there was no way he was going to be around. No, but see, they thought everything changed ultimately because of the elections in the United States of America. And Donald Trump's election, before he was elected, the belief was that we were going completely electric. The belief was that all cars would be forced to be electric. The belief was that everything was moving in that direction. What they didn't count on was the fact that Donald Trump was going to win. But when Donald Trump won, everybody was hooping and hollering, oh, yeah, Donald Trump's coming. He's going to destroy the EPA. He's going to bring the V8s back. The V8 engine's going to come back. Yay, we're going to have Hemis again, blah, blah, blah. What they didn't count on was the fact that this asshole was going to say, yeah, I'm going to impose tariffs on the entire world. He didn't count on that. One of Stellantis' biggest problems is that even though there were a lot of American Dodge Mopar enthusiasts who were saying, yeah, that Carlos Tavares should sell the brands since he was basically going to run them into the ground. The simple fact of the matter is, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, those brands have been passed around like a cheap hooker since at least 2008's bailout. But even before that, they were they purchased by Mercedes? They called it a merger of equally inferior products at the time. Mercedes reliability and Mercedes build quality have gone up considerably since then. But the more important thing is Mercedes customer service has also gone up. Stellantis has not. So, I'm listening to a lot of these YouTubers and they're talking about the good old days when they, oh yeah, well we had the Hemi and we had the Hellcat and we don't want the six pack. And see, what they don't seem to understand is simply from a logistical point of view. The reality is it wasn't the Hellcat cars and it wasn't the Hemi cars that were really driving all of the sales. It was the V6 cars. And unfortunately, that's what it is. It's because the V6 cars were the cheapest. The SXT, then followed by maybe not so much the GT models. The Scat Packs did start to make some serious money, but the thing about it is that happened later after they became a little bit more popular. But the other important thing to understand is not only did the V6 models drive the sales simply from a logistical point of view, but the other issue is interest rates were lower. We are right now in 2025. Interest rates are high as fuck. People's credit, in many cases, has been strained by people making really bad financing decisions, or in some cases, people having issues with their rent and housing. So this is not the same as like 2018 or 2019. This is not the same when we had, 4.75% interest and then move into like the COVID era and we had, 3% interest or less. They were damn near doing 0% interest when they were trying to move those cars off the lots. But what happened? Look what they did. Stellantis allowed their dealers to mark the prices up on these cars. So my thing is, even if they bring back the Hemi, what difference is that going to make? They have Hemi cars right now sitting on lots, and they're not being sold. They've had Hellcats sitting on lots. They got TRXs sitting on lots, and they're not being sold. So the other issue that they have is that those bodies and those platforms are old. So here you got to deal with this new situation. You got to build all new platforms, all new bodies, because that STLA platform that they ran for the Dodge Charger EV has been canceled. In fact, it got canceled a hell of a lot faster than I thought it was going to get canceled. I actually thought that Stellantis might try to stand behind it and try to improve it and try to fix the bugs. They didn't even bother. They said, yeah, let's just dump it. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe it wasn't. We're not going to know for a long time. But just bringing back the V8 engines, that's not going to do it. The times have changed, and the times have changed rapidly. Interest rates are higher. Insurance premiums on these vehicles are higher. On top of that, you got to worry about people not wanting to deal with a brand that is promising you car theft, where people are stealing your car. People, these pathetic parasites who will never be able to afford any of this shit because they have no jobs. They'll never have a job worthwhile that will pay them enough money to buy one of these cars. These pathetic parasites breaking into these dealerships, hijacking shipments, carjacking people. The simple fact is, you're dealing with a situation where times have just changed. And I'm listening to these people, oh, yeah, well, we're going to get the Hemi back. We're going to get the Hemi. Very few people will really be able to even afford to buy those things at the interest rates that are being promised, basically. Those dealerships will have no choice but to put, a very aggressive lease deal or a very aggressive finance deal. And that's assuming that the V8s really make it back into the cars. Chrysler itself as a brand is basically dead. And it's sad because Chrysler had the original Pacifica, which was basically the beginning of the crossover market, the original Pacifica. Then they also had, the Chrysler 300, of course. They brought out that Chrysler 200. They made it too small. That was a stupid move. And that car was discontinued. Alongside, they also had the Dodge Dart on the Dodge side. The Dodge Dart was discontinued. They had a stupid release. They released it stupidly. They never gave it an SRT variant. They dropped SRT as a brand name. So the simple fact is, times have changed. What do they really have now? And in my opinion, and I've owned several of those cars, in my opinion, they don't have anything left. They really have nothing to sell. Ram and Jeep will be okay. Chrysler as a brand is dead. Dodge is about to follow it, simply because they have nothing left to sell. They got rid of the Charger and the Challenger in order to bring back this electric Charger. They seem like they're about to scrap their ideas to make those Hurricane engines because they know that those cars don't sound like what people want them to sound like, no matter how powerful it is. One thing you got to deal with this industry, specifically with these enthusiasts. First of all, the price is going to be too high because you've got a brand new platform, you got a brand new engine. Price, they're trying to, get back all that money. But now you had a product that you basically had to cancel early and you didn't even get the real sales off of it that you wanted to get. So whatever they bring out next, they may surprise me, but I really don't think that the new products are going to be anything like what you expect or what you wanted out of them. The simple fact is, I think these Europeans who are in charge, I think that even though the Jeep and I don't even think, honestly, I don't think the Jeeps are going to get the V8. I really don't think so. I think maybe the Wagoneer might get it. I think the Wagoneer product may get it, but I really think that it'll probably only be Ram. Chrysler, as I said, is dead. They teased us. They said they were going to have an electric car to market, the Airflow. They didn't do it. They said that, we're going to have the Halcyon concept, and they showed this fucking BMW i8 looking sports car, and it was like, wait a minute, y'all are never going to be able to build that. In fact, right now you're in danger of the windows and doors being shuttered on Chrysler altogether, and y'all showing me something that looks like a BMW i8 with more glass. It's like you're never going to be able to build that. They have nothing to offer. The Dodge product, again, I also believe the Dodge product, in addition to the fact that most of these people aren't going to be able to afford the product because of the interest rates and because of the insurance, because you got to remember, insurance premiums kill a lot of these deals. I also think that the other big issue that they're going to have is that the market, that the audience that they were marketing to, I think that audience has, to some extent, maybe matured a little bit. And they've started to prioritize differently. I think a lot of them are going to end up going to Infiniti. I think a lot of them are going to end up going to BMW and Mercedes. And the reality is, those that can't follow, I think a lot of those people are going to end up in Kias. A lot of those people are going to end up in Hyundais, Hondas, and Toyotas. Because let's face it, a lot of them have shitty credit. Let's just face it. I can speak because I got 850 credit score, so I can just say it. A lot of these people got shit credit. They're not going to be able to easily afford to buy one of these cars when they're marked up ridiculously. And then on top of that, now you got to pay for insurance. Insurance is a deal killer. And now you're trying to buy a car where the car theft rate is high and the insurance premiums are going to be consequentially higher. It's like, guys, I really think they're in serious trouble. Carlos Tavares has dug a ditch for them. I don't think they're coming out of it. This guy, Antonio Filosa, which again is he's a European. If you're going to have him at the top, they're going to be focused on making back all the money that they lost within the last 3 years. And they're also going to be focused on going forward, they're going to want platforms and cars that they can sell globally. They're going to be focused on efficiency. And it's sad because when you focus on efficiency, that's the worst thing you can do, when you're talking about enthusiast vehicles. That's what the twin turbo Hurricane 6 was all about. It was about efficiency. Oh yeah, well, we get better gas, but we get 2 miles per gallon better than a Hemi, and we got 510 horsepower instead of 485. The reality is what you're dealing with is egotistical buyers. They want to make as much noise as they can. They want to be as loud as they can. And that's the reason why they go out and put these shitty fart cans on these stupid mufflers for these garbage Subarus and these stupid Toyotas. I was in traffic a little while ago. I had an Infiniti. It was an old G36 next to me, and it had a fart can muffler on it. You got to hear that shit. So I rolled up my window so I couldn't hear him, because this car is very, very quiet. This car is like, it's like a coffin inside. It's very quiet. It's got that dual laminated glass and everything. I just didn't want to hear that shit. But these people are putting fart cans and muffler deletes on shit cars because they're so desperate for you to notice them. If they had a Honda, you wouldn't notice them. If they just had a Toyota, you wouldn't notice them. But now if they put a trumpet at the end of their goddamn muffler system, now you notice them. You're dealing with ego. You're dealing with people like, I'm listening to some of these people talk, oh yeah, I wouldn't be caught dead in a minivan. Well, listen, if I had a family and I had to do road trips, a minivan would be exactly the vehicle I would buy because it's practical. It's practical, number one. Number two, it's easy to maintain. But you have some people that are so focused on how they look in the vehicle that they don't think about practicality. And that's the reason why these people stay broke. That's the reason. Because I'll tell you what, I'm not going to name names, but there's a certain demographic that A, has a lot of children, and B, buys a lot of minivans. In fact, they keep Chrysler moving, and they also buy, and I've been noticing on the road, they buy a lot of Kia Carnivals too. I'm not going to name names. A certain demographic, that's all I'm going to say. A certain demographic seems to buy a lot of minivans. They have like 6 and 7 kids, and all of them pile into that minivan. And the woman, sometimes the wife is driving the minivan and she's in there by herself. But the bottom line is she's got that minivan because she's cranking out babies. Some of these people, they're so focused on how they look in the car and how people perceive them to look in the car. They're not focused on practicality at all. And maybe that's their right. That's their right not to focus on practicality. But the bottom line is a lot of these same people have shit credit and stay broke. And then they cry and whine when a certain demographic always seems to have money, and when that certain demographic always seems to be in charge of everything. These people whine and cry because they're always broke. They can't buy any property because their credit is screwed up. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, maybe if you made better financial decisions, instead of you driving around in that Mercedes, or instead of you driving around in that BMW, maybe you should have bought real estate first. And I preach this all the time, talking about credit. It's like, you shouldn't be buying these cars if you don't have a piece of real estate or land, or if you don't have a house and you got some equity building. You shouldn't be buying these cars. But of course, people like me who try to say stuff like that, we get ignored. That's fine. You can ignore me all you want. I got 2 houses and I'm sitting in an $80,000 electric Cadillac right now. So, I mean, hey, listen, you want to ignore me, that's fine. But the same people would see me on the street and they'd be like, yeah, how did you do that? How'd you afford that? And then you try to tell them, but then they try to ignore you. So it's like, yeah, whatever. But what I do notice is that there's a certain demographic. They don't worry about what you think about them. They don't worry about how you perceive them in their vehicles. They're driving around in a minivan with 6 or 7 children, and you think they run the whole goddamn world. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name names. But that's just my observation. So the bottom line is, yeah, those same people will go out and try to buy a Durango, or they'll go out and try to buy a Jeep Grand Cherokee L or something. But then they'll be faced with higher payments, higher maintenance. And then they wonder why they're always broke. This entire company has a serious problem. They have a very serious problem. Prices are sky high. Reliability is way down low. If I spend that kind of money on a car and I come to the dealership and I put my car in for a service, I expect them to hand me a loaner. Now, Mercedes, I already know they're going to hand me a loaner. Cadillac, I already know they're going to hand me a loaner. BMW, I already know they're going to hand me a loaner. So yeah, you're paying ultimately for the higher customer service that you're going to get. So under that respect, I can understand why certain people want to go for those brands. But if you're just going for those brands just because you want to be seen in it, and you haven't really put any thought into the long-term ownership costs and all that, it's like, yeah, well, you set yourself up. Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, they have serious reliability issues. They have serious service center issues. They have serious customer service issues. When Hyundai, for example, when they decided that they were going to go up market, and they were going to start selling $80,000 Hyundais, they said, no, we have to spin this off and we have to treat the customer way better than we're going to treat the regular customer who buys our regular economy car. So what they did was they spun Genesis off and they sold Genesis in affluent neighborhoods while they sold Hyundai in regular neighborhoods, because they knew that the people coming in for a regular Hyundai are going to have regular credit scores, average credit scores. They're not going to be in the top A tier. They're not going to be there. So those people go and buy Genesis. What did they do? They gave you an Equus with an iPad with the manual on it. So they give you an iPad just to get you talking about them. They gave you concierge service where people would come pick up your car and drop your car off after doing the maintenance for you. They had a whole concierge service, and they still do, built in order to make sure that owning one of their products is not a nightmare. It's not a headache. They want you to say nothing but good about their cars. Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, Ram, Jeep, it's like when you buy one of those cars, you could spend $150,000 on one of them Dodge Demon 170s, and you get the same goddamn service that you'd get if you bought a $20,000 Jeep Cherokee. I'm not going to name names, but there are certain people who bought that Demon 170 and ended up having to sell it, or had to give it back, or had to get rid of it. That's a damn shame. Now I knew that there were problems with that car because I had heard that those cars were blowing their engines even before the car was actually unveiled. And I was like, wait a minute. If they're putting so much power into this car that it's literally destroying itself, that's probably not something you really want to buy. But these dudes, YouTube Olympics was in full swing. They ran out and bought those things. Very few of them still have them. It's just like when I think about the Trackhawk. Trackhawk, we threw the engine in there. We didn't do anything to the exterior at all, but we expect you to pay $105,000 for it. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm going to take this money and buy another piece of property. Turned out I was right. Now, I don't know a single person who had that Trackhawk who still has that Trackhawk. And this is 5 years later? Those things came out like 2018, and nobody really bought them until about 2020 when they were trying to get rid of everything that they had on the lots. Those cars, extremely high maintenance, extremely high insurance rates, extremely high MSRP, overpriced, market adjustment pricing. Stellantis has a serious, serious problem. And I don't think that just bringing back some V8 engines is going to solve those problems. The affordability problems, the insurance affordability problems, I don't think just bringing back some V8s is going to solve those problems. So that's basically all I wanted to talk about. So this guy, Antonio Filosa, good luck to him, because he's got a lot of work ahead of him. And as far as I feel about Carlos Tavares, that dude should be in prison for what he did. He sank those brands so that he could get a bonus. And he took his money and he skipped out the door. And as far as I'm concerned, I can't buy another Stellantis product. I just can't do it. And with Trump in office imposing these tariffs, I doubt that a lot of people are going to be able to buy a Stellantis product. I think a lot of people are going to have no choice but to go to the foreign brands that are built in America, because if he does manage to somehow go through with all these ridiculous tariffs, now you're facing higher prices, market adjustment, tariff adjustment. It's ridiculous. And these people were the same ones. Oh yeah, Trump's gonna destroy the EPA. He's gonna get rid of all the emissions and all this. And then this motherfucker comes out and says, hey, guess what? I'm charging you 10% more or 22% more. Or if you're coming from China, I'm going to charge you 145% more. Who could have imagined that? Who could have imagined that? But there you go. That's my rant. Like, I know some people are going to be up in their fifis about what I'm saying. And, as usual, I don't care. It's like you can make your comments, criticisms, whatever. It's like, that's just the way I see it. But what I do know is who I write my checks to, and I know who I'm not writing my checks to. And as far as I'm concerned, Stellantis, I ain't writing my checks to them.
To be continued.